Hi class. This video is meant to go over some of the major points in the response paper assignment. This does not take the place of reading the handout though, so make sure you read the handout really carefully. So some of the basics of this assignment you know from the welcome video. There are 6 response papers assigned this summer beginning in week 2, and you need to do 4 of them. So you can do all 6 if you want, and I would drop your 2 lowest grades, or you can simply skip 2. Remember though, you still are supposed to do the reading each week, right? So I don't want you to just check out for an entire week. You would just have the option 2 weeks to skip the response paper part alone, all right? So you might want to take a look at the schedule and think about what weeks you're extra busy and sort of plan for that. Or if it were me, I would try to get all of them done in at least the first 4, and that way, if you have them all done, weeks the 5th and the 6th ones, you can lay back, rest a little bit if you can. Okay. So the topics. The thing that I want to say, the most important thing that I want to say about the topics is that they should be your ideas about something really specific in one of the assigned texts, or maybe compare something in 2 of the assigned texts, okay? But the more focused your topic is, the more depth you'll be able to go into, instead of skimming the surface of a super broad topic, like everything you can think about in Daisy Miller, right? So pick a very specific theme, a very specific character, quality in a character, something, a setting, a scene in that week's reading, and go into depth. Sometimes the reading guide questions make good paper topics, especially if there's multiple ways to interpret something. And sometimes your discussion posts might lead to really good topics too, if you develop them further. Okay. If you ever have a question about whether something would make a discussion topic, a good topic for a response paper rather, feel free to email me. All right, so again, see the reading guide. You may also take your discussion post and expand on it, right? Adapt it to meet this assignment. So these papers are short, just 300 to 600 words. That's about a page, maybe 2, double spaced. All right, so not super long. They don't have to be formal essays, but you should have multiple structured paragraphs. All right, so ideally, you'll submit these by Saturday nights. You know that the weeks are meant to be units that end on Saturday nights, but realistically, I'm going to start grading most of them on Monday morning. So if I have it by Monday morning at 7 o'clock, I will gladly accept it without late penalty. After that, see the syllabus for the explanation of late penalties. There's a rubric in the assignment that explains how these are graded. And instead of using traditional letter grades, they'll be graded full credit, partial credit, or the equivalent of a D, or no credit. And the only reason it would earn no credit is if it's completely or mostly plagiarized. Okay. So what I have found when I grade informal papers this way is students feel more confident about experimenting, exploring, pushing the boundaries instead of worrying about letter grades. So my hope is that because it's graded full credit, partial credit, you won't be so worried about getting an A, and instead you'll feel free to explore your ideas. Okay. By midweek, hopefully Tuesday or Wednesday, I will provide feedback for each paper in your assignments folder. So you will just need to go back to the same assignments folder where you submit it and look for my uploaded version with my feedback in it and read that before your next paper is due, so that if there are any corrections you need to make before the next one, you can do that. Okay, so let's go to D2L and take a look at the table of contents where the assignment is. And I want you to read this more carefully. I assign these not just so I can find out what you're thinking, but because they help you figure out what you're thinking, right? When we're talking about literature, the act of writing a discussion post or talking something through or writing a paper can help us clarify our ideas, okay? So you'll want to provide strong evidence that you've read carefully and that you've thought about the texts. You're going to want a thesis statement, a specific and debatable point about the way that you see the literature. And you're going to want to support it with specific details and at least one quotation. Always in literature, you want to back up your ideas by going to the text and providing that textual evidence. I've already talked about some of these other details here, so you can read over these more carefully. There's information about length, structure, style. These don't have to be super formal. You can definitely say I in anything that you write for me this summer. You can be conversational as long as you're kind of proofreading and making sure your sentences are clear and understandable. Okay? Don't do any research for this, but if you feel like you have to, or if you end up going to a website and finding something interesting, absolutely give credit to that, right? Because if you plagiarize, you could get a 0. All right, so here's the rubric. This meets expectations column is what you need to do to get full credit, right? On the left is the exceeds expectations column, so doing even better than what you need to do. And then on the right side is the does not meet expectations, and that would be the equivalent of a D, okay? So to meet expectations, you need to show that you understand the text and address the assignment. You need to have a clear and interpretive thesis or argument about the text. You need to explain your interpretation adequately and support it with details from the text, including a quotation. You need to generally stay focused on your thesis and purpose. So don't try to cover everything. Just stay focused on that little slice that you're writing about. Good paragraph construction and organization overall. Quotations support the interpretation without being completely dominating. And then these smaller details are just about the writing itself, okay? At the end of this handout, just like at the end of the discussion post handout, I have some details about conventions for writing about literature. Some of these aren't super important, but they do signal to your reader that you know what you're doing. So they can be important things to consider as you write, but they're not nearly as important, these conventions, as the content of your paper itself. Here's a reminder about thesis statements. And some other things about quoting and citing and so on. Okay, so that's the assignment. If we go back to essential course documents, you will see that there's a sample response paper. You might remember the sample discussion post about Caesar the dog in A New England Nun. And here's an example of how a student took her discussion post and expanded it. She's got a few paragraphs here. Definitely not your traditional 5-paragraph essay. I don't want the 5-paragraph formula. She's just got good paragraphs with good development and explanation. Her page numbers are different than yours would be because she's using a different book, but she's really digging deeply into her thesis about Caesar the dog and how he helps us understand Joe Daggett better. Oops. So there we go. That's all I think I wanted to say about the response papers. Read over the sample too. And just like always, if you have any questions about any of this, you can ask in discussions or you can shoot me an email. I am happy to help you with these response papers. They are meant to be a relatively relaxed way to show your knowledge of the text. And then at the end of the semester, you will pick one to expand on into a longer essay. So it'll be a draft of a longer essay, essentially, okay? Take these seriously, but also have fun with them. Have fun exploring your ideas. I look forward to reading them.